Hi, perhaps you recognize me. It's your favorite president.
We will decide who comes to this country and the circumstances in which they come.
I mean,
I know you want to ban our national flags, but we're going to wave you goodbye.
What does confrontation mean? It means you fight for what you believe.
Enough was enough! And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother!
It is not merely our privilege to be strong, it is our duty to be strong.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Commanding the Narrative. Thank you to everyone who is watching live on Facebook, Rumble and YouTube, and thank you to everyone who may watch this afterwards as well. If you are watching live, you can contribute tonight to tonight's conversation through the chat. Whether you are on Facebook, Rumble or YouTube, it all works the same. And at some point tonight, I'll put the link to StreamYard if you want to call in and ask a question or make a comment or whatever you want to do, have your say. It's just like Talkback Radio, except I call it Talkback Streaming. So I'll put the link to StreamYard. Just click that link. You can use your phone. You can use your laptop. Just have a nice, strong internet connection and a question ready to go, and we'll bring you on and have your say. But let's kick things off like we always do. I'll just let you know about Buy Me a Coffee. Now, if you want to support everything that we're doing at Commanding the Narrative, you can head to Buy Me a Coffee and throw us a few dollars there. It helps to pay for the stream. It helps to pay for the website, and it also gives me that warm and fuzzy feeling inside. So please, if you want to be generous and show some appreciation to everything that we're doing, please head to Buy Me a Coffee. You can also head to our t-shirt shop and get your very own Commanding the Narrative or Ex-Candidates t-shirt. Just head to xcandidates.t-shirts.net.au and you can pick up an Ex-Candidates or Commanding the Narrative t-shirt. There's a Kevin for the Senate t-shirt there. Also, Adam Zara is going to be running for council soon, so we'll get some of his t-shirts up there as well. And as I said, just another way of you being able to support us in all our endeavors and everything that we're trying to do. Lastly, if you want to keep up to date with everything that we're doing at the Ex-Candidates or Commanding the Narrative, head to commandingthenarrative.com. Very easy, commandingthenarrative.com. Top right-hand corner, you can hit the sign-up button and you'll get a weekly newsletter. The first newsletters went out this week. So if you are signed up, just check your junk mail just in case it went into there. I did get some feedback that people were getting it in their regular mail, so we shouldn't have too many problems there. But it's a good way to keep up to date with all the podcasts that we do, any articles that I might write, events that are coming up. You'll get all that information if you do sign up to the newsletter. It's got all our social media there on the website. And also, you can keep up to date with the Global Discussion Forum. We've got one of those coming up very, very soon with Professor Ian Plimer. So that should happen on Sunday, August the 4th. So if you want to be reminded of that, head to commandingthenarrative.com and sign up to the newsletter. Now tonight, against my better judgment, we've got another Libertarian coming on the show, but I promise this is a good guy. He's a good guy, so I don't hold it against him that he is he's the lead Libertarian candidate for Queensland. So this is a big deal. It's just been announced, but he's been fighting for his communities up in Queensland for a long time now. In 2003, he started Property Rights Australia. So he's been battling for his communities and local groups for a long time. He does a lot of work on the ground. So let's bring him on and hear his thoughts. Mr. Jim Willmott, welcome to Commanding the Narrative, mate.
Thanks, mate, for that very nice introduction. Very nice.
Are you excited? Have you ever done any political campaigning before?
Mate, I have helped a few people with their political campaigns before at a state and especially local government level, and I've been very political, I guess like an activist, political activist when I was a board member with the Green Shirts Australia back in 2018 through to 2020. Yeah, I've been in the game.
Yeah, that's good, mate. Now, not only that, you've got this big campaign that you're going to launch coming up. It's called the Let's Rethink Renewables. What is it all about? What are you hoping to do with this campaign?
Well, what we're trying to do is raise awareness of all the impacts that are happening with the rollout of the government's energy policy, and that is 100% renewables, and what it's doing to rural and regional Australia, and also what it's doing to people in the cities as well through their higher cost of living. So people in the cities and people still in a lot of large provincial areas, towns, are very unaware in certain aspects of what this, I guess, industrialisation of our landscape is doing right across the triple bottom line values of these communities in our society. So it's all about getting awareness out there, getting the people go, well, just to rethink this rollout and just really think, is there a better way? So we're not proposing what that way is, but look, you would have heard that nuclear, or people want to stick with coal, or it's just this total focus of this current Labor government is just out of whack. And they're just got the blinkers on. They keep telling us, like even the name renewable is smart marketing, because, I was in the dentist the other day and he said, well, mate, how can renewables be bad? Just think about the name, Jim. Where do I start with someone like that? So, and the cost, it's all green. Our power prices are going to go down. It's just total deceitfulness from the government and their cronies and all the foreign developers that are they're not here to, I guess, improve our environment and give us cheaper power. They're here to make money, and they're making money off the backs of Australians, of our environment and our farmlands. And people need to wake up and find out what's really going on before it's too late. Because as we say in this campaign, mate, once it's gone for good. And you'll see as the campaign rolls out and those billboards that I sent you tonight, how we've really focused this campaign on those key pillars which are under threat. And that's why communities aren't going to take it. That's why they're standing up.
It's so deceitful with the name renewables, and for a lot of people, that's as far under the surface that they scratch. They don't go beyond that. And I think a lot of people just assume that these things just magically grow out of the ground, like wind turbines just magically grow out of the ground and solar panels just magically grow out of the ground. They don't think about the mining that goes into these pieces of infrastructure. And they're infrastructure. They're not. There's nothing renewable about them. You have to replace them every 20 years. Most of the components come from China. The lithium mining and the cobalt mining that goes into the components, that's incredibly toxic. Even the lithium mining I was hearing the other day, the amount of water that is required for lithium mining, and all that water gets contaminated. It's not this green, clean, wonderful utopia that they're presenting. If you scratch underneath the surface, there's a lot of environmental dangers that are happening just by producing these things.
Oh, totally, mate. You've hit the nail on the head. When you look at what good energy policy should be and what good energy infrastructure should be, and I think the IPA, Institute of Public Affairs, put this out with Steve Wilson, wrote a paper on it that it's called the energy trilemma. So really, Australians should be getting, I guess, reliable, secure power at an affordable price, and that it has got at least adverse impacts on the environment and rural communities and our food production. And if you put the renewable, 100% renewable policy through that, it's not going to be reliable. It's not made here. The bulk of it's made in China. They can cut that supply off anytime. They don't like us. I don't really particularly like them too much, given their human rights records. And the stuff, like, it only produces power 25, 30% of the time. And really, if we haven't got power to run a modern society, people can't go to work and make things and do things and have a power when they come home. That's civil unrest. And civil unrest leads to uprising. It leads to a weakening of our whole society and us as a country. We won't be able to defend ourselves with boats powered by wind power and solar panels on our tanks. And it's costing us, if you look on the other side, economically, power prices, what are they going to up 18%, up 23%? And they give us these ridiculous rebates of $1,000 and think, that's going to quieten us down. Mate, there's only one way power's going, and that's up with this totally ridiculous scheme. And then when you come down to the bottom of that energy triangle, well, look at the impacts on the environment. Look at the thousands upon thousands of hectares they're clearing, all the good farmland they're covering up, the communities they're splitting and dividing, all the heartache, the mental stress, all those external factors that no one's really costed or considered when they think renewables are the cheapest, which is a damn lie. So you put all that together, this is just a giant train wreck, an energy policy train wreck, mate. We got to get the country back on track. And that's what people like Katy, McCullum, myself, and a whole tens of thousands of people are saying. Let's get out. This is rubbish. Let's get back on track and something sensible, because if we keep heading down this, we will be over the energy cliff in a number of years very quickly. And it's not something you can turn around and fix quickly.
Well, people think it can't happen here. Well, look at South Africa. I mean, there's a lot of political turmoil and there's a lot of more complex issues that are happening in South Africa. But if you just focus on the energy situation there, they're having power rationing. There's certain times of the day you can't get power because they haven't built any energy infrastructure. They haven't been building new coal plants. They haven't been building new energy plants. And if you think that it's not, if that power rationing is not going to happen here in Australia, bad policy leads to bad outcomes. And this push to renewables, as you said, this stuff only works 30% of the time. They have to overbuild. The amount of money that has to go into overbuilding the system, we're building way more than we should. It's just not sustainable at all. It is completely bad policy. And, I think a lot of people have had it so good here in this country. We've never had to worry about blackouts. We've never had to worry about power rationing or anything like that. We don't even understand what could be coming down the pipeline if we continue down this path. Now, I want to you're going to be rolling out this Let's Rethink Renewables campaign. You're starting off with a billboard up in Gympie. So it's going to happen on Tuesday, the 30th of July at 11 a.m. on the Bruce Highway outside Gympie Golf Club. Mm-hmm. You and Katy McCullum are going to be there, along with a whole bunch of other people. I'm sure it's going to be a great day. I might bring up some of the billboards that you're going to have now, and you're also going to have a social media campaign and a radio campaign. So this is the radio commercial that you're going to be playing, just so everyone gets an idea of what you guys have planned.
Some things are just unrenewable. Our way of life is unrenewable. Our strong communities are unrenewable. Our productive farmland is unrenewable. Our wildlife habitat is unrenewable. Our rural landscapes are unrenewable. Let's protect our way of life for future generations. Let's stop the renewable rollout now, and let's rethink renewables. Join us today at letsrethinkrenewables.org before it all becomes unrenewable. Some things are just...
Okay, Jim, what's the goal of this? Like, what are you hoping? Is this just to awaken people, to get them to think about the whole policy, maybe expose them to some new information? Is that the reason why you guys are doing this?
I guess we looked at, and you would have seen we've used the word unrenewable because we wanted to change people's appreciation and understanding of what renewable is, because it's a marketing plan by government and its cronies of using the word renewable. And there's no, anything but renewable, as we've discussed. So that's why we've actually used the words unrenewable. And there it is, the definition, that which cannot be replaced. Our way of life is unrenewable. So instead of just pointing out all the bad things about those renewables, we actually took of why community will never give a commitment or any kind of, I hate saying the word social license to this policy being forced on us. And so we're saying that, in our communities across Australia, they're strong. We've got very strong, committed communities. They're weakening all the time through a lot of other factors, but they're strong. They're proud communities. And we've also got beautiful rural landscapes and vistas, productive farmlands that feed our nation and the world, beautiful wildlife habitats that we protect as farmers and as community people, as community groups. And we've got this beautiful way of life that has been built over generations upon generations of pioneers that we protect. Now, that is why people are standing up and saying to the government, their cronies, the carpetbaggers, the renewable developers, saying we don't want it, because we don't want to put all those pillars of our rural and regional areas under threat. We don't want them industrialised, which is, as you know, which is what's going to happen. If they're talking anything from 14 million hectares, pin cushions with solar panels, wind turbines, transmission, battery, pumped hydro, it goes on, anything from that up to 119 million hectares. As if we want that as a society for something that's going to give us intermittent power. So it's about putting that out there and saying, hey, we've got this here. We've got these pillars that we want to protect. We don't want you guys coming in and decimating that. So we're going to stand up and take it to you. We don't, we love what we've got. It's our heritage, mate. We don't want to see some foreign renewable development company coming in on our money and destroying what we love and what our heritage is. And so that is why it's the rethink, and it's twisting the words around so it's unrenewable. But it's also people say, hey, get interested and get up to date with energy policy, because this stuff isn't going to give us the baseload that we need. We are going from energy prosperity, which we used to have, to energy poverty. I use that catchphrase all the time. So people need to have a really good think about how Australia is going to maintain its baseload. Like Bowen and Albanese are out there going, oh, we've got to move away from coal. It's got to be done quickly. If we don't meet these targets, we're in serious trouble. The world's going to heat up. We're going to burn. We're going to burn, Steve-o. Mate, and nothing is further from
global
the truth,
boiling,
as
mate.
Know. Yeah, that's right.
It's been freezing here in Sydney all winter, been freezing our tails off. But apparently global boiling's on the rise.
Even if, I don't believe in, I believe the weather is changing, and but I don't believe it's changing through anything that humans are doing. I think it's a natural cycle, but I think that we should adapt, and we have continuously adapt. And Australians are very good at adapting to changes in climate. We're one of the best in the world when you look at the variability of our rainfall right across the continent. We're great at it. So everyone believes we need a lighter touch on the environment, Steve, and we should protect our natural resources. But we need energy like we need oxygen, and we need it at the right frequency at the right time. What renewables, 100% renewables will give us is like to me as a farmer, trying to grow a dryland crop. Sometimes you get just the right amount of rain. Sometimes you get no rain. Sometimes you get too much. We can't have a stabilised economy and society on intermittent power. And no matter what kind of construct they do, it's going to be backed up by gas. We're going to have these pumped hydro. There's going to be batteries. Just look at them. Look at these batteries. 2 to 4 hours run time and the efficiency loss, how long they last for. You go to the Port of Brisbane and there is hundreds and hundreds of 40-foot container lithium batteries lined up, all made in China. They weigh 45 tonnes each, and they're racking them out all over our catchment areas. It's a huge risk, and we've just got to be smarter. Let's look what I believe and what I stand for, mate. And I say this as a libertarian. I've said it last week at our launch too. I believe in climate adaptation, and we should get ready and we should adapt. It's going to change no matter what. We could close down everything overnight and the climate's still going to change. Let's adapt. Let's get ready. Let's think about our base load. Let's use coal. Let's use the coal stations we've got. They don't have to be closed down. They're not going to run out of puff. You can just refurbish the turbines and the boilers, and they'll go for another 20, 30, 40 years until we've got something, a new system in place, whether it's nuclear, whether it's something else, where we've got constant baseload as a society. If we haven't got baseload, we have got nothing. And as you know, all our manufacturing is going. Every day you hear of another company going. But all we seem to focus on is we've got to get to 2030. We've got to go to 82% renewables. By 2050, we've got to go to 100%. How ridiculous. If we were that concerned about climate change and the impact, we would be overseas with those countries, those developing countries, helping them with clean coal technology, wouldn't we? If we were worried about global emissions, that's where we'd go to first as a country with the technology we have, and we know a lot about coal-fired power stations. We'd go over there and give it high efficiency, high pulverization technology to cut down on emissions in those countries that are developing a heap of coal-fired power stations. But no, we're not. We're back here destroying our economy, destroying our environment, and driving the cost of living up over a cliff where people, you know, they're at their wits' end, a lot of businesses, a lot of homes. Like, how do the people living in friggin' tents down the back of Gympie or out the side of Bundaberg or on the streets of Brisbane or down the Brisbane River, you go and talk to them about climate change. How's it going, mate? They don't give up about climate change, mate. So I don't know, we have really lost the plot. This government has totally lost the plot. And I'll tell you, any politician who believes this stuff and thinks this, the energy train wreck that we are on now has lost touch with truth, reason and reality. And they're going to be on the wrong side of history, buddy. They are on the wrong side of history.
I really loved your analogy about farming and all the, farming's dependent on how much water, especially here in Australia. And if you get not enough rain, you don't get enough crops. If you get too much rain, you get too many crops. It's the same thing with these wind and solar projects. You'll never get that, that perfect balance, which you can get with baseload power. I mean, we've proved that for decades now. That's how the system operates. You just run them at 100% of the capacity, 100% of the time. It's very, very easy. You can't do that with wind and solar, and you're never going to get that perfect balance. So if people think that you're going to be able to turn the system up with pumped hydro and batteries and all this sort of fantasy that they're going on with, it's not going to happen here. And you just have to look at other countries in the world which are further down the line than we are. For example, Germany. Why can't we learn from their experience? Why are we making the same mistake that these countries have made, thinking that we're somehow going to do it differently or do it better? It just doesn't make any sense. You came out with a media release for your campaign, and one of the things you said here in the media release is both Katy and I have worked with over 40 different groups over the past 18 months and the message from grassroots communities highlights the effect a renewable only future will have on our way of life. You are speaking to these communities. I know you go around Queensland and other parts of the country speaking to people and speaking at community events. What's the main message that you get back from people when you speak to them one-on-one?
The main message, well, it varies. It comes from people are worried about what this means for their district as far as visual amenity, landscape change, what it means for the value of their property, and what it means for their community. It's all those pillars that we came with, that Let's Rethink Renewable campaign were born from the feedback that we were getting from communities. When we've rolled around the last 15 months, Katy and I, that, people are at a wit's end where they're voiceless and they feel forgotten. And this is being forced on them. And there seems to be some kind of, look at the Kingaroy solar farm. They gave them vouchers for any disturbance or dust or loss of property value to go and spend RSL, or they could go to the movies. Like this kind of, or they've renewed, put a new sandpit in the playground in town. Like like no matter what they do, mate, you can never replace your views and your vista or the wildlife habitats. And like I think people just don't want this industrialisation of their homeland. Like people are really sick in the stomach about it because it's really affecting them mentally as well. Like because they know, and I guess that's why we come to and educate them off the own integrated system plan maps. Is saying, well, this is what the footprint's going to be. This is what they say it's going to be in their own words from the government. And the Net Zero Australia report is about this is what we're in a renewable energy hub here. It's got a generation target. This is what they're going to achieve. I can't tell you how many projects, but this is what's happening down in your area, Steve-O, which is a bit further advanced with this whole thing. And people go, well, we don't want this. We don't want this to happen here. I've just moved to this area. My whole super's in my property here. My whole farm is my super. What my son's taken over the farm. What's going to happen? So it's about their life and their whole being. And I've seen some dreadful things happen to people, and relationships break down. People try to actually commit suicide. People are suffering mental stress. It's affecting lifelong friendships and relationships, marriage separations, people are leaving. It's all the cumulative effects that it just falls on deaf ears from our politicians. There's been a couple of politicians that have stood up, but very few. And I'm really disappointed, mate, I've got to say, in our agricultural representative groups, because they have got on the gravy train. They've just parroted the government narrative. It's good. It's going to be great for regional rural communities. There's going to be heaps of jobs. It's going to save us. Agriculture and rural areas need renewables to survive. Well, it's bloody news to me, and it's bloody news to a lot of people that I know, that we never friggin' need renewables beforehand, and we don't need them now. What we need is baseload power that's going to power everyone in the cities and coastal towns and out here in the bush, so we can keep going on as a great country. We've got heaps of opportunity, but we seem to be all, I don't know, in this bizarre, it's like a bizarre movie, mate, that's not reality, where how can people think going to this type of energy system is going to make any difference in the world's global climate? Like, you've got Bowen and Albanese on the record for saying, and they've said, like, when Katy and I have got some press, I don't know what these people are complaining about. I don't know what Jim Willmott's complaining about as a farmer, because doesn't he know, like, wind turbines and solar panels? He's going to have better weather at his place. So, where do I go from there, mate? We're in a lot of trouble. And that's why, mate, I've decided to run for the Libertarians, mate. I'm at my wit's end.
Well, I've done something very dangerous. I've put the link in the chat, and if anyone wants to click that StreamYard link, you can call in and ask a question of Jim or make a comment. Someone's jumped onto it very, very quickly. Let's bring her on right now. Katy McCallum, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks, Stephen. How are you?
Very, very good to see you, Katy. Now you're the second half of this combo with Jim, launching this campaign. What do you have to say about it?
Look, I just actually wanted to jump on. I don't want to take up much time, because Jim's got a lot of libertarian matters, I think, that he probably wants to talk to you about, Stephen.
Oh, but fantastic. I love that talk.
I just wanted to say that I went to a community meeting this morning in regards to the Forest Winds turbine complex that's proposed in the forest just north of Gympie. And just to back up what Jim was saying there, this is the stuff that doesn't get out to people. I met a man this morning. It's the first time I've ever met him. He just paid $1.2 million for his forever home, which it's beautiful, beautiful property. And he bought it 2 months ago, and he had no idea that he is going to be looking at 226 300-metre tall wind turbines. He's devastated. And he, along with about 40 other people, stood in that hall with me this morning, pretty much ripping it into this bloke from Forest Wind. And we hammered home the concept of social licence and what this company was meant to be doing to gain social licence. And all he could say was that they would get some funds for community grants for things like fire engines. And I just find that disgusting. Fire engines. So they want to buy out these people by buying them a fire engine. So it's ridiculous.
That's how they think they can just buy people with these, as Jim said, sand pits and play equipment and fire engines, and that's going to be enough to cover the cost for everything they have to give up. Like both of you came down to DY and spoke at the Environment and Energy Forum, and you were both very dynamic when you spoke. But there was also another gentleman there who spoke on the panel, and he was talking about having to board up his windows with blankets and pillows and everything like that to keep out the noise from wind turbines. And he said when he came down to Sydney for the forum and he stayed at someone else's home, normally when you stay in someone else's home, it's hard to get to sleep. You don't have a good night's sleep because you're in a different environment. He slept like a baby. It was the best sleep he's had in a very long time because he didn't have to put up with the noise of these wind turbines. I mean, how is a sand pit or a new fire truck going to compensate for that sort of stuff?
Well, we did ask the guy from Forest Winds that this morning, and I pointed out to him that all the people that lived near these proposed wind turbines would never have a decent sleep, and he said that that's all lies. It's all lies. Must be disinformation and misinformation. But
well, I guess, mate, if they get a lot of new fire trucks, they're going to need them anyway, because once these things go up in that Turan forestry, they're going to need them and that's another thing, like the accumulative effects of having 226 turbines there, the environmental effects, the risk of fire, it's not just about the visual aspects, it's about all these other things that we think that's possible, and potentially they, obviously they do burn. Using the precautionary principle, we should be waiting and doing as much research before we industrialise and roll out this type of stuff. But we're not. We're running ahead with it. But when you talk about climate change, that's different. We should take the precautionary principle and change things. But when it comes to this stuff, no. We'll just, it's got to be done as quick as possible.
Look, both of you are getting a lot of love in the chat. Michelle says, so grateful for both of you for standing up for us. So there are people out there that really appreciate what both of you are doing for your communities and standing up for people who may not be able to do it themselves for whatever reason. So good on you both for doing what you're doing. Katy, before we let you go, obviously the 30th of July, next Tuesday, is going to be the big day to unveil your first billboard. Do you have any comments that you want to let the listeners know about, why you're trying to do this campaign, what you're hoping to get across, and how they can support you?
Yeah, look, can I just say that the reason that Jim and I did this was because all we want to do is fix the nation. Isn't that right, Jim? We just want to fix Australia. We've spent so much time on planes and in cars together in the last 12 months. It's all we talk about, isn't it, mate? It's all we talk about.
Yeah.
And this is the only way that we can get the message out there. We've got 3 giant shipping containers that were donated by another really generous guy who's involved in this campaign. If anybody knows of a spot somewhere along the Bruce Highway in southeast Queensland, they're going to have these same unrenewable signs on them. We can put them on your property. Give Jim or I a yell. This has all been done off the back of money that's been donated from hardworking Aussies. This is not money that's come from government grants or from fossil fuel companies, which we've been said in the past we must be aligned with. This is from grassroots people. And it's so that we can get a message out to grassroots people, because it needs to be heard. It's not being heard. You heard me in Sydney, Stephen, when I said people think that we're NIMBYs up here. We're not NIMBYs. We're not NIMBYs at all. We're trying to save the country so that the city can still enjoy and benefit what the country has to offer, because it won't be here within the next 5 to 10 years if this keeps going. So everybody needs to come along. It's going to be great. Hey, Jim, I've actually predicted that we're going to get in a bit of strife by either the police or the council. Somebody's going to come to try to stop us. Good luck to them. Good luck to them.
Hey,
I'm going to get out of here and let you talk to Jimbo.
No, Katy, before I let you go, you said if anyone wants to host one of these on their farm, how do they get in contact with you guys? What's the best way?
So the Kilkivan Action Group email address would be the shot. Are you able to put that in the notes somewhere? KAG4600@gmail.com.
Yeah, I'll put that in there for you.
Yeah. So if they were just to email us, that would be great. And the other thing that we're looking to do, hey Jim, is to continue this program all around Australia for as long as we possibly can. So we need people to donate more funds, and we need more billboards from the tip of the Cape right down to the bottom of Victoria. Now that we've set this up and we own it all, Jim and I have said that we'll gift these images to other action groups. They won't have to do anything. They can just use these now and just stick them up on the sides of highways.
Hey, and if anyone is outside of Queensland and you can't get to Gympie and you want to help, head to the Let's Rethink Renewables website. Let's rethinkrenewables.org. I'll put that link in the show notes later tonight. Hit the donate page and donate to these two. And
it'll make us feel warm and fuzzy.
It will.
It's a good feeling, let me tell you. It is. But more importantly, it's going to help these guys do what they're doing. And if this really is a success, hopefully you can take it to other parts of the country, because these renewable projects, and I hate calling them renewables, wind and solar, offshore wind farms, high voltage transmission lines, pumped hydro, whatever's in that basket, it's happening all around the country. There's a lot of groups around the country that are having to battle this sort of stuff. And if we can get this message out there and start campaigns and do exactly what you two are doing in more locations, we just have to do it. But we need the support of the people.
Yeah, too right.
Totally.
Too right. Thanks for having me. I'll leave you to it.
No worries, Katie. Thank you very much. We'll see you later. Bye. Now, if anyone else wants to call in like Katie just did, just hit that StreamYard link and call in and have your say. But Jim, when you came down to the Environment and Energy Forum in June, you were talking about some feedback that you had from your all across Australia, mainly in Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria, because you were pushing back against the notion that Chris Bowen and a lot of people in the government are saying that a lot of people want these renewable projects on their properties. And you did a survey that contradicts what that narrative is. Do you want to just go through this quickly? What did you find from this survey here?
Well, mate, it really aligned with the survey that the Dyer survey did to the infrastructure commissioner before he resigned, and that was that. Look at the figures here. 93% of people are saying from those survey results that they don't think the government acted in good faith, and they don't think the government departments had fair and open, transparent consultation, and that was a big, strong message that's come through everywhere.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is a very comprehensive survey. You've asked them a whole bunch of questions. This one here, government departments have listened to and acted on concerns regarding renewable energy projects. You can see in the red, disagreement, 95% disagreement. Number 4, energy companies have applied pressure to access private properties. 76% agreement. Now, you've been the chairman of Property Rights Australia for over 20 years now, since 2003. What is the story?
I haven't been there 20. It's been going for over 20 years. I've been the chair for about 18 months, nearly 2 years. So I'm still on the board. I've just had to step away. Seems I'm running for politics, but I'm still on the board, a board member of Property Rights Australia. So, mate, we responded. The reason why we put that survey together in partnership with the National Rational Energy Network is that from the results being pushed through the CSIRO, saying they did a survey back in March this year, and there was over 80% said they didn't have a problem. Over 6,700 people undertaking the survey. Well, 80% of them say they were quite happy, or they'd put up with living next door to a large renewable development. So we just thought that was crazy, and we must have been off with the fairies with what we were hearing in at a grassroots level. So that's where we had to counteract that. And I think I said that at the conference, at the forum, where they relied on people responding to a hypothetical scenario where saying, how would you feel? They sent it out to city and regional people that weren't living next to a large renewable development. And so how can you actually have any idea of what those impacts are if you haven't really felt it firsthand or talked to people or your networks are being affected by it? So that's why they had a skewed result, and 80% of people said, yeah, it's fine. So that's why we just had to run with that survey and get the truth out there. But we've had a lot of knockers saying that it was kind of biased. Well, how is it biased when you're sending it out to people in those areas that are affected? Anyone in Australia could have put into it. So yeah, we just had to come out and say that.
What's concerning is some of these graphs here where you're asking people more about the impact on them in their personal lives. Like this question here, do you have trouble staying focused on the present moment? And you've got never and occasionally. Well, majority there, 62% are saying that they are having trouble staying focused in the present moment. Another question here, during work hours, do you have a hard time staying focused and concentrating on the task at hand? Well, again, 60% of people saying they are. What's the psychological impact on people surrounded by these projects? Obviously, not everyone, it's not having an effect on everyone, but it seems like the vast majority, it is having an effect on them.
It is subconsciously, like it's hard to put a quantifiable figure on it, and there could be a lot of other things in their lives also contributing to those types of issues. However, it is something that should be investigated further, and it's just, to me, it is a symptom, Steve, that what the government's rollout is doing to rural and regional communities, and so there needs to be further investigation of this. Of these impacts, and really, you just think of some of those renewable energy zones like in central Western New South Wales now, when you've got 60 to 70 projects in a council area. You just imagine the impact on people's lives, both visually, both through trying to get services, the impacts on the utilities of their town, and the acquisition of their properties through whether it's for new transmission lines or whether it's through large state significant renewable projects where they're taking land off people now. This is having a huge impact. And what is really frustrating, no one seems to care. No one seems to care in this government. They just wipe it off going, oh no, well, we're going to get social license, and we are building. Well, look at the little town of Rye Park in southern Tablelands, New South Wales, where you've got people that have to sleep with, like our mate set out the energy forum we went to, pillows under their doors and doonas on their windows. But they did get a new pathway up the main street. Well, good for them. It's just ridiculous. They're trying to buy us off. Really, when you think about it, the government's not going to achieve social license. But what they have got, Stephen, is an altogether different types of license, because they've got the power of the government on the side, they've got the money, and that's our money, and they've got a license to come in and decimate our way of life and I guess impact on people's mental health to a point where families are separating, lives are being shattered, and the whole cohesiveness of our rural and regional areas are being fractured and divided up by our very own government and their carpetbaggers, their corporation, and from a bulk of overseas renewable development corporations. That is what is happening. And that's what I implore people that are sitting here going, geez, I didn't realise this. Jim might be a bit of a fearmonger. Get out and educate yourself, because this is happening on our watch. And, that is why we're stepping up. That is why people need to come on board, because if we don't do something about this, once these communities are fractured, and remember, Stephen, these are the communities that feed us. These are the communities that look after our wildlife habitats. And these are the communities, where people love to come for a lovely country drive. They've got great tourism spots. Now, once they are impacted in this way, you can't put them back together. And that's what all these key pillars are back into this Let's Rethink Renewable campaign's all about. Once they are destroyed, they're gone for good. That is a part of Australia that will never be the same. And I think as Australians, we've all got to stand up to what is happening here, because once it's gone for good. And we will always be thinking that we should have stood up and done something. And I'm really proud of a lot of people right over this continent that are standing up. They're the true Aussies, mate. They're the new pioneers that are trying to protect what Australia is built on. So, look, and that says it all there. You know, once wildlife habitat is unrenewable. Like, look at all the great work like Rainforest Reserves have done in really highlighting this, and great people like Steve Nowakowski and Carolyn Ems have done in really bringing this to, and people saying that, oh, there's got to be a bit of decimation of the environment, Jim, because, you know, we've got to put all these renewables in now because we're in a rush, the world's going to boiling. Are they serious? Are they serious when you look at the emissions coming from developing countries and from like powerhouses like China and India? When you look at the exponential up of emissions went up last year, coal use went up last year, fossil fuels went up last year. Like, are you really serious? Like, where has common sense gone? Where has common sense and fairness gone in Australia? Politicians in power now, mate, have been dismissive of our rights for too long. Hey, they are elitist. They've been irresponsible. And, you know, that's what's driven people like Katy and myself and other people to stand up, because we're at our wits' end. We're not getting anywhere with our current crop of politicians because they're followers, they're conformists. They're too busy looking over their back and going, oh, well, like secretly they say, well, look, Jim, I just don't think the renewables are going to work, but I've got to go along and toe the party line. It's just unforgivable, mate. They will be on the wrong side of history. We'll remember this as Australians.
It's pretty scary, the amount of money they're spending on all this stuff. Over $1 trillion alone just on high voltage transmission lines, because you have to rewire the country to get the high voltage lines out to these projects, because they're not along the coast like the coal plants were. You have to build them inland where the wind is, where the sunshine is. Just imagine what we could have built here in this country with that money. The hospitals, the roads, potentially like nation building projects like a high speed rail. What are some projects up in Queensland that we could have built with all this money that's been pushed into wind and solar and high voltage transmission lines and everything like that? A lot of that money is going to multinational corporations. It's going off country. What's some projects that we could have really got behind and really built this country up?
Well, mate, look at our road network. Even if you look at it across Australia, I think at the National Local Government Association meeting in Canberra like 3 weeks or so ago, it came out there. There's nearly 650,000 kilometres of rural and regional roads that are in poor condition. And these are the roads that we have to drive on every day. And, you know, there's heaps of fatalities. It's hard to get produce to market. It cuts down on our productivity. You can't carry certain loads over bridges. It is an utter disgrace. 8 weeks, like you might be a registered patient at a doctor's clinic in the South Burnett. 8 weeks we've got to wait to go and see the doctor. 8 weeks, mate. So I've got to travel 2 hours to the coast to Gympie to go to see the doctor. But oh no, we're going to have a new sand pit in Kingaroy. Well, isn't that fantastic? Like, we have got very limited housing. There's 400 families living homeless down the banks of the Mary River and around parks in Gympie. They're everywhere around the South Burnett. And here we've got a government focused on this unreliable intermittent energy system that, you know, comes from a communist country, and we're paying $15.2 billion a year in subsidies, and the stuff only lasts 25 years max before we have to renew it all again. Like, what's going on, mate? Like, look at our national highway. Like, the 4 lanes are just going to come from Brisbane to Gympie, just beyond north of Gympie, and then the rest is a goat track to the top of Cairns. Like, that would have been enough to build a 4-lane highway right to Cairns, mate. And you imagine the productivity that would have got out of that. Imagine like when you put the 3 pumped hydros together, like when you think of the cluster of what Snowy Point 2 is, whether it'll ever get finished, the Barumba pumped hydro they want to build here, the one up at Pioneer that they want to build, I think all of them come to around 38 billion. And then you look at all the main transmission easements they want to build, well, there's another 32 billion. I think you put it together, I think it comes close to 72 billion. Mate, if we've got to go to nuclear, so okay, well, let's look at it. Well, mate, that would have been enough to build the 7 nuclear plants that Dutton had in his policy at $8.7 billion each. And they produce power 24/7. They've got a capacity factor of 93 to 96%, not a capacity factor of 25 to 30%. And they last anything up to 60, 80, 100 years. What's going on? We can't even trust the data out of our main scientific institution. And they don't even tell us the assumptions that they use, and they're too embarrassed to give us some of the fine print because it might make AEMO embarrassed or the government embarrassed. We're in a lot of trouble, and we've got to get a change of government, and we've got to pull this train in the right direction before it's too late for all of us and for our kids.
See, that's the worst thing. To clean up this mess, we're going to have to go to nuclear, and that's going to cost money, whether we like it or not. It could be a good policy. It's still going to cost money. And we're going to have nothing to show for all this renewables garbage. Nothing. It's as you said, maximum lifespan 25 years, and then what? We have to replace it all of it, and go and send the bulldozers back in there, send the graders in there, send the scrapers back in there, and redo it all again. It's just absolute complete madness. So let's talk politics, because a lot of people don't like paying attention to politics, but at the end of the day, this is a political issue. The main people that seemingly are pushing this stuff, a lot of them are in Sydney. Chris Bowen's in McMahon, Tanya Plebiscite's in Sydney, Anthony Albanese's in Grainler. All the Teals are here in Sydney, or at least most of them. Some of them are in Victoria and other places as well, like Adam Bansdown in Melbourne. These people were in all city areas. You don't see them building solar panels in their electorates. You don't see wind turbines off the coast of the northern beaches in all the teal electorates. Now you are putting your hat in the ring as the lead Senate candidate in Queensland, but everything's a little bit out of balance. Even if you do get elected, you're still one person in the parliament. The cluster of all these politicians that are in city areas pushing for this stuff, yet they don't want it in their elections. They just push it out onto the rural people, the country people. Where's the balance? Where's the fairness? Like, where's the representation for people out in rural areas to push back against this stuff?
Well, that's right. And look, there is no balance. And look, if I am lucky and fortunate enough to get in, hopefully there's some other like-minded senators to get in, but there already are. Like, we would vote on some of the things the coalition's for. We would, like the LNP and the Liberal Party, would vote a lot of the things that One Nation would support, or we would vote with the Ralph Babette, what we would. So there would be a cluster of senators with the same kind of values and principles mostly. And I would look at forming an alliance. But what I would do, even if I'm only one senator, if I'm lucky enough to be down there, is actually force the coalition, like with my other alliances, to be a better government for the government of Queensland, and be a better government for the government of rural and regional Queensland. Because, mate, we are getting hung out to dry, and there's frustration. Look, there's rural and regional politics is bubbling through pure frustration. And there's a lot of other issues other than renewables where we're just getting walked over left, right and centre and hung out to dry. So we've got very poor representation. And when did we as Australians lose our able to challenge, to stand up and debate? Because we've lost that. And I'm just, people think Australia has gone too far, mate. And I've said this to people, we're like, our country is like a wedge-tail eagle that's been cleaned up by one of those big blades on top of one of those big wind turbines, and there it lies, mate, on top of the Great Divide, crying out for its life, slowly dying. And some people think our country's like that, and we should just let that eagle die, mate. It's too late. We'll just just hide in the background and watch the country go down the tube. Well, I think that eagle is still worth saving, and I'm going to get in there and fight for it. And that's why I encourage a lot of other Australians to stand up for the people that are about common sense, because what you and I and Katy have talked about previously, there's no common sense. Why would we be going down this pathway and knowing like it is just ridiculous? And it's about getting some common sense in there. And the thing with being a senator as well is that, sure, I can still get involved in state level issues and local government issues, because you'd have a presence. You can you'd have a following, and you can bring those issues to light and shine the torch on them. Because let me tell you, there's senators there are very few senators in Queensland now that are actually actively involved in standing up for their constituents on what the real issues are, mate. They're all flowery over here, and they're not being real. And I tell you what, grassroots communities have had an absolute bloody gutful of not being listened to by the political class that have just been dismissive of our rights and that aren't listening to us and are just career politicians. Hey, get out of Parliament and let the real Australians in, because they're not the real Australians. Like, pioneers built this country, buddy. Pioneers through hard work and toil built this country. And, the one thing they didn't have a big government with heaps of witches' hats all over the place telling us how to do it. We got in and did it ourselves. And we want that freedom back. We want that common sense back, because one thing that really worries me, and what I'm hearing from people all over Australia, where I'm travelling to, where Katy and I travel to, is, what kind of future are we going to leave for our kids? Are our kids ever going to be able to be pioneers in this country again? What kind of future are we living for them? We should be looking at projects, like we've said before, instead of wasting it all on this bloody renewable garbage, we should be looking at projects that uplift us all as a nation. Together, regional, rural, and urban people together. I'm sick of these bloody separatists that say, we've got to look back. We've been bad in our history. Mate, we've got to come together as one nation. These separatists will be on the wrong side of history. And, there's a whole other issues we could talk about here. The separatists are on the wrong side of history. They are nothing but energy wasters, mate. And we have nor got the time nor the frigging energy to waste. Get out of the way. Australia should unite under one flag, one people, and let's get on with business, because the world is passing us by. And guess what? They're not going to wait for us. We've got to grab it with both hands for the good of our people now and future generations, or it will be gone for good.
Now, Jim, you would know that I've been having a long-running battle with the Libertarian Party and a lot of good libertarians. I get on with all of them. I'm friends with a lot of them, but I'm still trying to really work out where the line is drawn with libertarianism. And as you know, and Katy and a whole bunch of us that are involved in NREN, we're all sitting on different fences when it comes to political parties. Katy's One Nation, you're Libertarian. I've been a Liberal for a very long time. You're talking about separatism. Here we are in all different parties. I am trying to convince you guys behind the scenes that we should all be in the one party. But why did you choose the Libertarians? What attracted you to the Libertarian Party?
Mate, I think with the Libertarians, what I seen in their philosophy and principles was one thing was close to my heart was the expansion and protection of private property rights. And I think private property rights are fundamental for a prosperous society. So that was one thing that interests me. And the other thing, because I used to be a senior public service servant in the Queensland government about 20 years ago. I worked in rural areas for a number of years and remote areas, and made my way up and worked in in a senior public service role, doing cabinet submissions, advising ministers on natural resource management issues and biosecurity issues. And what I've seen back then is we had public servants and governments that used to deliver services fairly and equitably compared to now. What I'm seeing and what has drawn me to the Libertarian badge is that they want to decentralise a lot of government departments and services, because what's happened now, there is a concentration of power, whether it's in Canberra or in a lot of major metro cities, and a lot of those, and what those governments are, they're just producing red tape. They love it. If there was a gold medal event in the Paris Olympics, mate, of who produces the best bureaucracy in the world, we'd get multiple gold medals and probably have a world record, because we're great at bureaucracy and red tape. And it's killing us. It's killing our productivity. It's killing our lifestyle and us as a country. So again, that drew me to the Libertarians. They want to cut back red tape, and they want more choices and freedoms, personal freedoms and freedoms for family at a grassroots level. So that's why I'm there as well. So yeah, that's what's really attracted to me. But they're a party, like, I don't like saying we're going to reduce the size of government. What I like saying is to people, and people say, well, what does that mean? What I like to say is reduce the amount of government influence and intervention in your life. That's what I like to say. And the way we're going to minimise duplication. We're going to roll back red tape. We're going to increase productivity. We're going to lower taxes, and we're going to do that in a separate way. It's a game of inches, not miles. It took 20 to 30 years to get to this mess, and we've got to be strategically of how we do it now. Now, I wish, if the Labor Party, if the Liberal Party and the Nationals had stuck true to their word and to their principles, I wouldn't be in the Libertarians. There wouldn't be a Pauline Hanson One Nation party. But they have not. They have drifted so far from their original principles, they're hardly recognisable anymore. So we've got to, as a Libertarian, I'm going to have my spurs on, and I'm going to pull them back to centrals, to something that's a reality for us. And I'm going to get them to work with grassroots communities, because it's just not happening. They're often fairyland. Mate. What we should really happen is put a big fence around Canberra and go, righto, you're going to net zero as a trial first, because we're using the precautionary principle. So we're going to cut off all your supply of power, and you can go for it. I'll be senator back here in Kingaroy and just watch from afar what happens, and we'll gauge whether it's going to work. So really, like, we've got a lot of similarities, even with people that were in right of Labor. Like, where's the old Labor Party gone? The one that used to care for the workers. Where are they gone? Where are the old Nationals gone? Where are Liberals gone? Like, I wish we could get back to our old principles, mate, because we wouldn't need a lot of these smaller parties. But I don't think any of the major parties should ever have majority government again, because they have broken the trust and relationships with all Australians. And having smaller minor parties there is going to keep them more honest, more accountable, and more transparent. It's not going to happen overnight, but we have got to start, because we are on a train wreck, and we've got to get Australia back. Now, our country is going back at pace really quickly. And so we've got to all stand up. Like, I never wanted to get involved in politics. I'm not a polished professional politician, but I love my country so much. I think this has driven me to get involved in politics, because I can see what's happening here, and it is going to have severe incomes for us now. It is. And for our future generations. And that's why we've got to stand up and get involved. And that's why I've put my hand up, mate, to step beyond the pulpit and get involved.
Now, good old Katy McCallum's still there in the background stirring the pot. She said, Trippy, I think you're a closet Libertarian. You just don't realise it. Now, Katy, I'm going to push back on that. Certainly, I agree with probably 80 to 90% of libertarianism. If I go onto the Libertarian website and read all your policies, I'm going to go, yes, tick, tick, tick. And I've said this in previous podcasts before. I mean, majority of the libertarian stuff I'm on side with. But if you look at the Liberal Party, if you go back to the We Believe statement, and I encourage everyone to go and read the We Believe statement. This is what Robert Menzies came up with when he first established the Liberal Party. It was 1954, so a few years after he started the Liberal Party. But there's 17 principles here of what the Liberal, it's like the core values of the Liberal Party and what they should stand for. And this is when a lot of people say the Liberal Party has moved away from its core values. This is essentially what they're talking about. And there's a lot of libertarian values in this document. So I feel that the Liberal Party should go back to this document and maybe go back and read this document and go, hey, maybe this is what we should be standing for. But when it comes to the Libertarian Party itself, the biggest problem I have, and I said this before, where do you draw the line? Where is that balance between pure libertarianism and small government? I do feel like you do need some government there to provide some safeguards for people. And if you don't have any safeguards, then you have complete anarchy. And a lot of there are libertarians that do advocate for that sort of anarchy. I'm not going to expect you, Jim, to defend this, because this is John Ruddock in the New South Wales Parliament pushing this through. It's a different state to you, but he's currently got a legislation that he wants to introduce that would remove the ban on alcohol in some public areas like parks and things like that. And he's trying to make the argument that government shouldn't intervene if people want to have a drink at the park. And it's a very libertarian view to be able to do what you want without government intervention. But I feel that there's a safeguard there. You don't want drunken people in the park with kids around, kids are running around the park and you got some idiot there with a beer can, he's having too much. And how do you control these people from drinking too much? There's licensed premises that people can go to drink. And I think it's completely fair and reasonable to have areas where there is alcohol-free zones, but here in New South Wales, and look, we'll probably talk to Victor Tay tomorrow night on the ex-candidates, because he's part of the New South Wales Libertarians, to maybe discuss this a little bit more. But it's just an example. Where are the safeguards with the Libertarians? Whereas with the Liberal Party, there is libertarianism within their core values, but it's not complete libertarianism. It only goes to a certain degree, which I'm more aligned with. I guess my point in saying all of that, and you might want to comment on some of what I've just said, but I want to get to the main point. Katy's One Nation, a lot of good people in One Nation, a lot of good people in the Libertarian Party. I've been to branch meetings in the Liberal Party, which are far more patriotic, far more hardcore, conservative than any party that I've ever been in before. It seems to me that all these people out there are completely the same. We all have the same values. We all want the same thing for Australia, but we're all split into different parties. You're running as the Libertarian candidate in Queensland, but you're going to go up against Malcolm Roberts, who I think is fantastic. You're also going to be going up against Matt Canavan. These are very good senators who you could potentially take votes away from. That's just the reality. I'm not attacking you. That's just the system as it is. Shouldn't we all be in the same party? Like if the Liberal Party have moved away from their core values and they have moved away from where they should be, I think a big problem of that is that good people like yourself, good people like Katy, and good people like me in the past have moved away from the Liberal Party and are not within the Liberal Party, trying to keep it on track, trying to keep it moving back to the We Believe statement. I know there's a lot. I know I've said a lot there, but here's your right of reply, mate.
Let's unpack that a bit then, mate, and I will unpack it. Is like with libertarians, sure, there are some libertarians, and like there's factions in every party, whether they're minor or major parties, that, well, in the libertarians, there's some that believe that you should have very little laws or no laws. And that's certainly not where the bulk of libertarians that I know believe. We need laws and a judicial system. We need enough regulations and government to have a civilised society. And I think a lot of libertarians agree with me on that. And I think there's a lot of higher order issues that we should be looking at, other than some of the issues that some of these libertarians are thinking about. And really, to me, and I think with all the other parties, like both One Nation and Liberal would agree that the traditional values of giving people a fair go, of the love of family and of common sense, of volunteerism and of mateship are things that we can all agree on. We don't have to agree on everything because we're all different. The thing with the major parties that I have a real issue is that you might have a number of people in there that are very patriotic, approachable, grounded, like a lot of libertarians are, but there is this block at the top that's formed like a cancer, and they're just fake liberals. They're fake nationals, and they should be over in the Green Party, or they should be teals. And it's like a force field that they've got the power, and no matter what you do, you can't break it through. And that's why a lot of people are frustrated and have left, and that's why these other parties have sprung up. So really,
giving in. Don't you think that's taking the easy route?
No, because what they're seeing in a lot of major parties is they're closing down branches. They're not worrying about branches. It's a concentration of power at the top. So people have no other choice but to go to a lot of other minor parties that have the values that they align with, because they look to the major parties up the top. They send up motions for discussion. They don't even get discussed. There's heaps of people leaving the LNP. There's heaps of people in the LNP in Queensland coming to the Libertarians, and I can say at a high level. And this is the issue, that there has been, like me, I would never be accepted into the LNP, and quite frankly, the way they're operating, I would never want to. There just seems to be, there's no reason why we cannot form an alliance, and that there is a definite role for minor parties. So this never happened. The mess Australia in is at the moment is because of the major parties, mate. That's what. It's not because of the minor parties. It is because of the major parties, whether it's Labor, whether it's the coalition, it's because of them. And that's why I hear a lot of people saying, well, I wish they'd reform and come back to their values, but we're going to kick them back to it, kicking and screaming. And the one thing, people are frustrated because a lot of people have tried to get in and they've left because they just don't get listened to. Their emotions don't get up. They don't value grassroots input. So this is what they say to me, Stephen. He said the one thing that the major parties listen to and will react to is votes to minor parties. So that's what we've got to do to get some sensibility and common sense, and to break that cancerous growth. Well, that's what we're going to do, mate. We haven't got time. Go.
You're talking about running motions and having votes. At least there's a functionality for that in the Liberal Party. If you look at One Nation and you read their constitution, basically it's a dictatorship. Pauline Hanson has all the control. There's no votes. There's no democracy. And I know it's not your role to defend One Nation, but you are defending the minor parties. Well, there's an example of a minor party where you have no say at all. There's no say. It's run by one person and a few of her underlings up in Queensland. That's the reality.
Well, mate, look, I can't. I'm not going to comment. Maybe you should ask other people about One Nation. But what I can say about the Libertarians is they are building branches right across Queensland. We've got 6 or 7 branches now. Branches are in rural and regional areas. So that's like, I've got people that have been lifetime members of the LNP in Queensland, and they say the branches are virtually, they don't even listen to them. There's branches that haven't met for 6 years and they've just been disintegrated. So, how can I get in a party that's like that, mate? That's controlled from the top, that's controlled by metro areas. It's not going to work for me. And I'll get in a party that values branch input, values grassroots input. And, that's why I'm here. And that's why I think a lot of people are going to come across to the Libertarians, that we've got a fair and equitable system. We're grounded, we're approachable. We still have those traditional values that Australia was built on and previous generations were built on. And we develop good policy. And look, a lot of the policies of One Nation I like. A lot of the policies of the Liberal Party and the LNP, apart from Queensland, I could get along with. But, mate, they're just, as a major party, what has happened in Australia comes back to how they have governed. And so where these minor parties, including the Libertarians, if it takes bleeding votes out of them and getting other senators and other House of Rep members in to help them bringing them across, that's the only way we're going to do it. I didn't wish it had to be this way, but it's got to, mate.
Look, there's a lot that I would agree with. I do tip my hat to the Libertarians for going to the effort of setting up branches. There's a lot of branches being set up here in Sydney. It's good to hear that you guys are setting up branches in Queensland as well. I think that's incredibly important. You only have to look at the United Australia Party and the amount of members and volunteers that they had that they did nothing with. Now the UAP doesn't seem to exist for no reason. I mean, they had a good group of people there, and that's another waste that's gone along. At least the Libertarians are moving in that direction of trying to build, trying to grow. I will also tip my hat to all the Libertarians that have come on to either commanding the narrative or ex-candidates and put up with me probing them and questioning them and trying to call them lunatics or whatever I might do. They keep coming back for more, and they're willing to get into the debate. They're willing to get into the argument. They do want to persuade people of their ideology. What is your pitch to, say, someone like me who is, I guess, 80% of the way there with the Libertarian Party, but I am concerned with certain safeguards or where to draw the line. I'm concerned about some decisions in the party where you can't, there doesn't seem to be any unity about the logo that you want to use, or say for issues like abortion, you speak to some Libertarians that are pro-life, and some Libertarians that are pro-choice. Some Libertarians believe in open borders. Some Libertarians don't. When it comes to property rights, the Libertarians seem happy for foreign ownership of residential property, for example, which would severely impact local people. Every day mums and dads trying to buy a property here now have to compete with BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, and to try and buy residential properties. I know, again, I'm going on a rant and I'm giving you a lot of information that you need to reply to, but I guess the essence of my question is, what is your pitch? What is your pitch to people that are still sitting on the fence with the Libertarian Party to try and get them across to your side? Well,
I think people are scared that we think that there's going to be no government, and that we just want no government. We want chaos, and the bulk of libertarians think we need enough government to have a civilized society, and I'm totally in that camp. But we do need to reduce the size of the bureaucracy, but we need to do that in a efficient and strategic way. And people think that we're just going to carve big swathes of the government overnight. It's a game of inches, not miles. We've got to bring the Australian people with us in that transition of reducing government in our lives. So it's not going to happen overnight. And we're on things like abortion. There's people, they're allowed their point of view, and it will be the majority that decides what the position is. And we believe as libertarians there should be citizens-initiated referenda, and surely some of those big issues that you've just mentioned there can be decided through those processes like that. Because as we move into a more digitized, some of the digitization I don't mind you, some of them that I don't, we can have more options for more input into policy and legislation. And I really like that about the libertarians. They want more input from the communities about what they think about these decisions, more choice. So I don't think we've got the kind of party like what's in the major parties now, where they just don't listen. They don't listen. They get their policy directives from international institutions and from a heap of bureaucrats that never step side out of their glass towers. And so libertarians aren't like that. We'll listen. We're active and free thinkers, but we are not going to cause chaos. We're going to do this in a sensible, strategic and efficient way. And so there is less intervention in your life. So you've got more freedom of choice. Mate, if you and your family, you know how best to educate your children, and you should have more choice of how to do that. We should be paying more, a flatter rate of tax. We should, we still have the right to bear arms, but we don't want everyone walking around with a pistol. I think people think we're just going to let chaos reign, and we're not like that at all. And I know there's people from major parties trying to paint us like that. And I implore people just to get in and to investigate and step into the libertarian world, because we've all got a bit of libertarians in us. If you believe, in common sense, if you believe in those traditional values that I went through, well, that's all what libertarian's about. And that's why I really like the old Liberal Party, mate. I could, if they were like that, I would step in and be very comfortable. But I think they have lost their way, and I think libertarians, if we grow and act as a spur to bring it back to some more sensible outcome, that's what's going to happen, and that's what I plan to do. So, yeah, don't be scared, Steve. Step into the libertarian light, mate. Come with me, because if I think they were crazy, I wouldn't be in the party, buddy.
No, I know that. I trust your judgment, Jim. That's why I asked you the question. But you mentioned the Howard years of the Liberal Party and the coalition. I mean, I think there's a lot of people out there that feel exactly the same way, and I call them the disaffected liberals. They look back to the days of Howard and Costello, and they look fondly upon those times and think, wait, sure, there's people that point to things that Howard did, particularly about water policy and stuff like that they now view in a negative light. But living in those times, we had a great country, had money in our pocket, we felt safe, we felt secure, we felt like we had a good government. You said before that if the coalition could get back on track, there wouldn't be need for One Nation, there wouldn't be need for the Libertarians or any of the other right minor parties. But if you look in recent times under Peter Dutton's leadership, he was right on the voice. He supported the No campaign. Jacinta Price was basically the hero of that campaign, along with Warren Mundine as well. All members of the coalition. The nuclear policy that he's come out with, and I know some people are saying, no, we should stick to coal, but I think a lot of people have been invigorated by that policy. They like the fact that it's a nation-building policy. It's going to provide us with baseload power. It is a long-term solution for our energy solutions. What is it going to take for someone like you to tip your hat to the Liberal Party and say, hey, you guys are back on track?
Mate, well, they're not back on track, are they? Like when you look at things like they're part of one of the biggest social engineering experiments in history, both major parties. They're trying to divide us. They're trying to fracture us. They're trying to separate us by race. Yeah, sure, Dutton went and eventually agreed with the voice, but he didn't come out and rush at it, did he? It took a bit of pushing and probing. And on renewables, mate, they're still saying, and they haven't come out and said, we're not going to have any renewables. And this is the ridiculous. I'll pick a few holes in their policy. Look, I agreed. It was brave to come out and say nuclear, we're going there. But imagine building nuclear, and these nuclear power stations, say they cost 8.7 billion. Let's say they cost 10 billion for a modern nuclear power station and reactor. Well, imagine if we're going to have renewables too, so we're only going to run these $10 billion nuclear power stations on 50% capacity. Does that make sense? That you spend all this money and only run them on 50% capacity, and then, we're still going to have wind turbines, we're still going to have solar panels, and we're still going to have some transmission. Make a decision. They are too much like conformists and followers still. And they still believe that, if we don't get this done quickly, they still believe in 2050. They still believe if we don't cut our measly 1.4% of emissions by 2050, we're somehow going to affect the global weather, the global climate. And they're still looking at all these I guess, ESG frameworks, which when you think about is just another whole level of bureaucracy that it is burdening the Australian economy with. So they love producing bureaucracy just as much as Labor do, mate. So where instead of having one of their benchmarks is how many legislate bills that they've got through, why don't they look at how many bits of legislation they've got rid of? They love doing bureaucracy just as much as the other side. So they've grown into a bloated bureaucracy and a bloated government just as much as the other side. So, mate, no, I don't think he's exactly on the right track. There's bits and snippets of it, and that could be some of the patriots and some of the real liberals and nationals trying to draw it back, but they have lost their power. There's too many liberal wets. There's too many people they're fake liberals and fake nationals. They should be over with the teals and the greens or on the far left of Labor.
But are you saying that the Libertarians are completely against renewables?
I'm saying the Libertarians are completely against large-scale industrial renewables.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, you may have some backup now because another Libertarian has called in, Mr. Richard Storch. A lot of people may be excited about seeing Richard on again. Richard, you're going to have to unmute yourself. But welcome aboard, mate, again. And do you have a question or comment for Jim?
My first comment is for you, Stephen. If you want to stay with the Liberal Party, you stay with them. We don't need you. So now we've got that out of the way. Jim, you're far too polite. When people ask me to explain about the Libertarian Party, I just say to them, you know, you're either authoritarian or you're libertarian. If you like authoritarianism, well, everyone can tell you what to do, control your life. You know, you won't have any choices.
No. You can't go from one extreme to the other. You can't say you're not libertarian, therefore you're authoritarian. It doesn't work like that.
I'm a very bad libertarian. I've got some authoritarian tendencies.
I know you do. You're more of an authoritarian than you are a libertarian, and I've told you this in the past. But you're going from one extreme to the other. You're saying if you're not libertarian, then you are authoritarian. I'm not saying that at all.
We're all on a pendulum. And it's really a case of what you value yourself. If you value freedom, then libertarianism has an appeal. But I don't want to dwell on that too much. What Jim's been talking about in terms of renewables, obviously we have a broad consensus that we don't like industrial renewables. Obviously, if people want to put solar panels on their roofs, well, that's something else. But it's not the same thing. So,
Katie's put through a question for you, Richard. What type of libertarian are you?
A bad one. I'm far too reactionary, too authoritarian. I'm always getting told I'm a communist. So there you go. But I'm sorry I've missed most of the interview. But Jim, you have my wholehearted support, and I wish you all the very best. You know,
thank you.
You're a good man.
Thanks, mate. Cheers, buddy.
I think I'll sign off now.
Okay, Richard, you've done your damage. Bye-bye. All right, see you later, mate.
Bye-bye.
Okay, Jim. I mean, I think Richard was right. You are a good man and you will be an excellent candidate when it does come to the election. And who knows when the election will be? It could potentially be this year, or it could be as late as May next year. So we really don't know. But as I said before, you're up against some stiff competition. And when people go into the ballot box in Queensland, they're going to be seeing Jim Willmott's name there, but they're also going to be seeing Malcolm Roberts' name there. They're also going to be seeing Matt Canavan's name there. They're going to have to pick one of you.
Matt Canavan, he's not up this time. It won't be Matt Canavan.
Oh, well, that's good. You don't
be
have
Rennick because Rennick won't be there. It'll be Susan McDonald. It'll be Paul Scarr, a Labor and a Green senator. So yeah,
Well, that's an easy choice. You don't have to vote for the Greens, and you definitely don't have to vote for Labor. So that cancels those ones out.
that's right.
But
Yep.
why Jim Willmott? Why does Jim deserve the number one?
Why do I deserve the number one? Because I'll stick up. I guess I'll stick up for people's rights, and I'll bring some realism to the Senate, where I'll shine the light on the issues that a lot of the major parties don't want to talk about. And I'll make sure what I really want to fix, mate, is more grassroots inputs from communities into policy development and things that shape our lives. Because what we see, the level and quality of consultation coming out from government departments on instructions from their political masters is pathetic. And I think the policy development cycle in this country is pathetic, and it's broken. And that's why we're getting such poor outcomes on the ground through a lot of our funding and through a lot of the policy and legislative frameworks that are pumped out of Canberra week upon week, year upon year. And so the money, we're going to have, I guess, over time, you're going to have more freedom. You're going to know someone that's there, that's got your back, that's grounded, that believes in those key Australian Aussie values. And above all, you're going to get common sense that, you know, that by spearing the countryside with all this renewable garbage is somehow going to change the weather, or you're going to have a senator that does not believe that. And you're going to have a senator that, I guess, wants to bring on a change in Australia that lifts us all up together, that's patriotic, that's proud, that's approachable, and is not dismissive or irresponsible with your freedom. That's what they're going to get with me, Stephen.
And look, if you do vote for Jim or you don't vote for Jim, the main thing we need to get across to people as well is preferences. If you do have those good names on the ballot, and if you are blessed to live in a state where you do have a Jim Willmott or a Malcolm Roberts and you have to choose between them, make sure you use your preferences effectively. The preference discipline on the right is not up to scratch. That's why if you look in the Senate, you've got 11 Greens, Lydia Thorpe, Pocock, Jackie Lambie, all sitting on one side of the chamber, and on the other side of the chamber, you've got Pauline Hanson, Malcolm Roberts, and Ralph Babette, 3 only. When the left and the right outside the major parties pretty much get the same percentage of vote. It's just that the right is so fragmented, and it is a real danger. So your preferences definitely need to come into play. But Jim, thank you very much for coming on tonight. I love talking with you. I'm so glad that I met you and have developed a friendship with you and a respect for you and everything. And hopefully I can have you back on at some point closer to the election. Even if I can make it up to Queensland and do it in person, I'd love to be able to do that, because I think you're a great guy. You've done so much great work, and good luck for your campaign, and especially good luck for this Let's Rethink Renewables campaign that you're about to launch. Just to remind everyone, Tuesday the 30th of July, 11 a.m. up on the Bruce Highway outside Gympie Golf Club. Head out there. You can meet Katy, you can meet Jim, and a whole bunch of other great people. Really get behind this. If you can head to the website, it's let'srethinkrenewables.org. You can go there. You can sign up to the newsletter, and you can also donate. Please, donate is very important. And I know Katy and Jim might not want to, drum on to that too much, but I will for them. Please donate to their cause. Because I think this is a great campaign, and if we can move it to other parts of the country, I'd love to see these billboards in Warringah as well, right outside. Would be fantastic.
Yeah, no, definitely, and they've got a good message, which I think it will resonate with a lot of Australians.
Yeah, definitely. All right, mate. Now, if people have really enjoyed you tonight and they want to follow you and keep up to date with everything that you're doing, is your new X account the best place to go?
It is, and I've got a new Facebook account too, a business account that's all about libertarians. So if they just punch in Jim Willmott libertarians, there I am. Yeah, there I am. So and we're going to have like an Instagram and TikTok account as well. eventually. And we'll be doing a lot of travelling around, just like I've done with community groups, Make for Renewables. We'll be getting out and talking to people about what other issues bar this industrialisation of Australia with renewables. There's heaps of other issues out there that I want to take on board and push as a priority to represent the people of Queensland in the Federal Senate.
Excellent, mate. We'll get stuck into it. I'm sure you're going to rattle the cage and you're going to have a really good campaign. So I look forward to it. Thank you, everyone that has contributed tonight in the chat. It was a really engaging interview. It always adds to it a lot more when people are putting comments in the chat, making their comments and questions being known to everyone. Thank you for Katy and Richard also for calling in. It always makes for a better interview. And look, I say it every single time, share, share, share. If you know anyone in Queensland who's thinking of someone to vote for in the Senate and they don't want to vote Liberal, well, maybe Jim's a good choice. So if people are more, if you know of people in Queensland and you think they'd be interested in what Jim has to say, please share this interview out. It's very easy to just copy that link and put it in to an email or Facebook message or whatever it might have to be. We really do rely on the audience to get our podcasts out. We do grow very, very slowly every single week, so that's encouraging, but it's all down to you guys. It's all down to the audience. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for everyone who's watched this. Thank you, Jim. I really enjoyed this one. It's always great speaking to you, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you.